on a Friday. On Saturday morning, there was a feeling of slight anticlimax in the air. Mrs. Leitner, in particular, was inclined to be very offhand with me and rather pointedly avoided any possibility of a tete-a-tete. Well, that didn't surprise me. I've had the same thing happen to me again and again. Ladies tell their nurse things in a sudden burst of confidence, and then afterwards they feel uncomfortable about it, which they hadn't. Only human nature. तो ये नेचर होता है ना, वे पहले बता दिया और फिर उसके बाद ये कहा कि भाई ठीक है, ये क्यों बता, थोड़ा ऑफ हैंड होगा. I was very careful not to hint or remind her in any way of what she had told me. I purposely kept my conversation as matter of fact as possible. Mr. Coleman had started into Hasania in the morning, driving himself in the lorry with the letters in a knapsack. He had also one or two commissions to do for the members of the expedition. It was payday for the men, and he would have to go to the bank and bring out the money in coins of small denominations. मतलब लोगों को पैसे देने थे, तो वो अपना coins उसके small denominations हैं. All this was a long business, and he did not expect to be back until the afternoon. I rather suspected he might be lunching with Sheila Rayleigh. You know? Work on the deck was usually not very busy. On the afternoon of payday at 3:30, the paying out began. 3:30 पे paying out जो था वो चलता था. The little boy Abdullah, whose business it was to wash pots, was established as usual in the center of the courtyard. And again, as usual, kept up his quiet nasal chant. वो अपना वो अरब इसकी तरह ना वो गाना शुरू कर दिया. Dr. Leidner and Mr. Emmett were going to put in some work on the pottery until Mr. Coleman returned, and Mr. Carey went up to the deck. Mr. Carey deck पे गए और Mr. Leidner and Mr. Emmett जो थे वो pottery पे काम कर रहे थे. Mrs. Leidner went to her room to rest. I settled her as usual and then went to my own room, taking a book with me as I did not feel sleepy. मैं किताब लेके गई, मैं book लेके गई और मैं sleep नहीं गए थे. It was then at about 1:45 and a couple of hours passed quite pleasantly. I was reading Death in a Nursery Room, really a most exciting story, though I don't think the author knew much about the way nursing homes are run. At any rate, I've never known a nursing home like that. I really felt inclined to write to the author and put him right about quite a few points. When I put the book down at last, it was red-haired, Parmalee. I'd never suspected her since, and looked up at my watch. I was quite surprised to find that it was 20 minutes to 3. I got up, straightened my uniform, and came out into the courtyard. Abdullah was still scrubbing and singing his depressing chant, and Daymat Ahmad was standing by him, sorting the scuffed pots, and putting the ones that were broken into boxes to await mending. I strolled over then, just as Dr. Leidner came down the staircase from the roof. Amma, what job? Not a bad afternoon, he said cheerfully. I made a bit of a clearance up there. Louis will be pleased. She's complained lately there's not a room to walk about. उसने कहा डॉक्टर लाइडनर ऊपर से नीचे आए और बोले कि भाई लुई बड़ी खुश होगी, मैं सब साफ कर दिया. I'll go and tell her the good news. मैं अंदर जाऊंगा और अच्छी तरह. He went over to his wife's door, tapped on it, and went in. It must have been, I suppose, about a minute and a half later that he came out again. I happened to be looking at the door when he did so. It was like a nightmare. He had gone in as a brisk and a cheerful man. He came out like a drunken one, reeling a little under his feet and with a queer, dazed expression on his face. Nurse, he called in a queer, hoarse-voiced nurse. I saw at once that something was wrong and I ran across to him. He looked awful, his face was all grey and twitching, and I saw that he might collapse any minute. Amma! My wife, he said, my wife, oh my God. I pushed past him into a room, then I caught my breath. Mrs. Leitner was lying in a dreadful huddle deep by the bed. I bent over her. She was quite dead. Mrs. Leitner मर गई. Must have been dead an hour at least. एक घंटे पहले मरी होंगी. The cause of the death was perfectly plain. A terrific blow on the front of the head just over the right temple. तो राइट टेम्पल के जस्ट ऊपर एक ब्लो निकला और उसकी मर गई. She must have got up from her bed and been struck down where she stood. I didn't handle her more than I could help. I glanced round the room to see if there was anything that might give a clue, but nothing seemed out of place or disturbed. The windows were closed and fastened, and there was no place where the murderer could have hidden. Windows सारी बंद थी, कोई भी प्लेस नहीं थी जहाँ पे मर्डर हाइड हो सकता है. Obviously, he had been and gone long ago. I went out, closing the door behind me. Dr. Leitner had collapsed completely now. David Emmett was with him and turned a white, inquiring face to me. David Emmett ने उसकी तरफ देखा. In a few words, I told him what had happened. As I always suspected, he was a first-class person to rely on in trouble. He was perfectly calm and self-possessed. Those blue eyes of his opened very wide, but otherwise he gave no sign at all. He considered for a moment, then said, I suppose we must notify the police as soon as possible. Bill ought to be back any minute. What shall we do with Leidna? Help me get him to his room. मम्मा सुन रही हो? मतलब लाइडना तो बेहोश है. अब इसको क्या किया जाए? तो इसको रूम पे ले जाओ. He nodded. Better lock this door first, I suppose, he said. है ना? He nodded. Better lock this door first, I suppose, he said. He turned in the lock of Mrs. Leidner's door and then drew it out and handed it to me. I guess you'd better keep this nurse now then. तो उसने लॉक बंद किया और उसने कहा मैं चला. Together we lifted Dr. Leidner and carried him into his own room and laid him on his bed. Mr. Emmott went off in search of brandy. He returned accompanied by Mrs. Johnson. Mr. Emmott गए और बाहर जो थे वो ब्रांडी के लिए उसके ले गए और उन्होंने वो मिस जॉनसन के साथ बाहर आए. Her face was drawn and anxious, but she was calm and capable. And I felt satisfied to leave Dr. Leidner in her charge. Mrs. Johnson के चार्ज में वो छोड़ के चले गए. I hurried out into the courtyard. The station wagon was just coming in through the archway. I think it gave us all a bit of shock to see Bill's pink, cheerful face as he jumped out with his familiar, "Hello, hello, here's the oof," he went on gaily. "No highway robbery." अब बिल जो था वो तो अम्मा वो तो पैसे लेके आया था. ठीक है ना? He came to a halt suddenly. I say, "Is anything up? What's the matter with you all? You look as though the cat had killed your canary." Mr. Emmett said shortly, "Mrs. Leitner's dead. Killed." "What?" Bill's jolly face changed ludicrously. He stared, his eyes goggling. "Mother Leitner dead? You're pulling my leg." "Dead?" It was a sharp cry. I turned to see Mrs. Mercato behind me. "Did you say Mrs. Leitner has been killed?" "Yes," I said, "murdered." "No," she gasped. "Oh no, I won't believe it. Perhaps she's committed suicide." "Suicides don't hit themselves on," I said dryly. "It's murder, all right," said Mrs. Mercado. She sat down suddenly on an uptown packing case. She said, "Oh, this is horrible, horrible." Naturally, it was horrible. We didn't need her to tell us so. I wondered if perhaps she was feeling a bit remorseful for the harsh feelings she had labored against the dead woman and all the spiteful things she had said. After a minute or two, she asked rather breathlessly, "What are you going to do?" Mr. Emmett took charge in his quiet way. "Bill, you'll better get in again to Hasana as quick as you can. I don't know much about the proper procedure, Better get hold of Captain Maitland. He is in charge of the police here. Get Dr. I think. Get Dr. Really first. He'll know what to do. Mr. Coleman nodded. All the facetiousness was knocked out of him. He just looked young and frightened. Without a word, he jumped into the station wagon and drove off. Mr. Emmett said rather uncertainly, I suppose we ought to have a hunt around. He raised his voice and called, Ibrahim, now. The houseboy came running. Mr. Emmett spoke to him in Arabic. A vigorous colloquy passed between them. The boy seemed to be emphatically denying something. At last, Mr. Emmett said in a perplexed voice, He says there has not been a soul here this afternoon. No stranger of any kind. I suppose the fellow must have slipped in without their seeing him. Of course he did, said Mrs. Mercado. He slunk in when the boys weren't looking. Yes, said Mr. Emmett. The slight uncertainty in his voice made me look at him inquiringly. He turned and spoke to the little potboy Abdullah and asked him a question. The boy replied vehemently at length. The puzzled frown on Mr. Emmett's brow increased. I don't understand it, he murmured under his breath. I don't understand it at all. But he didn't tell me what he didn't understand. तो कल पढ़ेंगे। तो तुम सो जाती हो मम्मी।